This one, okay. I'll give you the lab outline first because we're in lab, okay? This week we are covering all of this, right? Next week, we're going to be doing urinary and reproductive together. The structures are very small, especially with the urinary, there aren't a lot, so we can share that. The week after that, I don't know what you're gonna be doing, but I'm gonna be feasting, I don't know. Okay, or I'm gonna be cooking. If it's in the morning, I'm gonna be cooking the week after that.
Neither Tuesday nor Thursday has lab that week, right?
Tuesday has lab still.
Oh.
If you want to come to the Tuesday lab, you can. That is going to be the last lab. That's when they're gonna be doing urinary and reproductive. So in other words, because of your holiday, you guys are jumping ahead of the Tuesday starting with today. Does that make sense? So starting with the Tuesday of Thanksgiving, Tuesday is going to have urinary and reproductive. But you guys would have already had it the Thursday before. Okay, and then this Tuesday, the Tuesday lab is doing digestive and respiratory. Because Tuesday this week only did endocrine. So this week, Tuesday only did this. Thursday, we're doing all three. This Tuesday, they're getting this and that. And then on Thursday, you're already jumping ahead to urinary and reproductive. And then the Tuesday of the holiday week, Tuesday gets that same thing. Okay, so that's the rundown for Tuesday. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, are we okay with the lab final and what day we're all going to be taking it?
I think that's.
We are all taking the lab final on Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So that on Thursday, okay, so this is how the lab final day is going to work on that Tuesday. 8 a.m. instead of lecture. Thursday section takes their practical at 8 a.m. Because Thursday you would have had to be there for lecture anyway, so this is not much of a time change for you. Only this time you are taking the lab practical ahead of Tuesday section. Tuesday section are going to be taking their lab practical that same day at 9:30. There is no lecture on that day. This avoids you taking a lab practical on Thursday when it's your lecture exam. So Thursday, folks, after your lecture final, you're free to go home. You don't have to have a lab practical after your lecture exam. I wanted to avoid the practical and the lecture final being on the same day. That's why. Does that make sense? Okay, so Thursday, you guys know what your schedule is?
So
Plan to be there.
An hour and a half
Yes.
on Tuesday,
Yes.
8 to 9:30.
8 to 9:30 for Thursday, 9:30 to 12, really, or 9:30 to 11 for Tuesday.
Is that
Did you
lecture
say-
for the cumulative?
Semi-cumulative. There is going to be a PowerPoint that we'll post for the semi-cumulative part to give you an idea of what ideas to think of. They're not going to be super specific. It's not going to be like a lab list where it's like, know this, don't need to know this, but just to give you a general idea. With the semi-cumulative part, if it's an idea that showed up multiple times in that particular unit, that means it's important enough for you to know. Like blood flow through the heart. You gotta know your blood flow to the heart. You need to know what is oxygen rich and oxygen poor. Those are ideas that you would have had to be exposed to over and over. Am I gonna give you a picture and ask you about the azygous vein? Probably not. Too specific, right? Should you know what a vein is? Yes, you should know generally what a vein is. These are things that I wanted you to walk away from 201 absolutely knowing. Does that make sense? Okay, nervous tissue. Should you know the difference between peripheral and central nervous system?
Yes.
Yes. Should you know what an ependymal cell and what it could be found? Probably not. Should you know it's a glial cell? Yes. Should you know what it specifically does? Not really. Should you know the structure of a neuron?
Yes.
Absolutely. Did it show up once or twice? Many
Yes.
times. Should you know the difference between peripheral and central nervous system? And what parts of which? Yes. Autonomic nervous system, what do you think?
Yes.
Yes. Difference between parasympathetic and sympathetic? Yes. Okay, with muscle. Should you know how muscle contraction works and what myosin and actin are? Yes. That's a big idea. Oh, and nervous? Oh, what is the one idea above everything I want you to walk away with? your action potential. You gotta know your action potential. So that's what could be encapsulated in the semi. Yes?
Did you say that Tuesday gets a lecture while we're taking?
Nobody gets a lecture that day.
Okay.
So Tuesday, folks, those of you who are on Tuesday who are coming in today,
Don't have to.
sleep in just a little or cram that morning. I don't know what you're gonna do. But you don't have to be here at 8 a.m. You gotta be here at 9:30. That's it. Whew, that's for the Tuesday section. Thursday, you're here at 8 a.m. Okay? All right. Lecture. How lecture is gonna work? We have a total of 4 lectures left. Today we finished endocrine. What are the 3 lectures we have left, everyone? Digestive, urinary, and reproductive, and that's it. 3.
Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday.
So it's going to be, we have 3 left, right? Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thanksgiving.
Okay. I thought it was Tuesday for some reason.
Okay, that's all right. 3 lectures left. So, I know sometimes I run in a little late because I'm trying to do this. But please come to lecture. Come to lectures. You got it. You're gonna miss so much if you don't come to lecture. If you come in 30 minutes later, you're gonna miss 30 minutes of lecture. Come in, guys, okay? So, let's see. Digestive. For the lecture for Tuesday, a lot of it is anatomy, which we can knock out right now. So what we have to do on Tuesday really is, for digestive, is put it all together and have a big picture. You have 1 group activity left, 5 points. This one's gonna be kind of fun. Within your teams, and a couple of you, I had to shift teams because you ended up being in a group of 1 when all is said and done. And you can't be in a group of 1, I want you to do it as a team. Each person is gonna be graded individually though. I want you to start discussing with your group 1 entree, 1 meal, something that has to have all 3 things. These are the 3 things. It has to have a carbohydrate, it has to have a fat, and it has to have, what do you think is the last thing? A protein. Give me somewhat of a good entree. Don't give me a bowl of Cheerios. One time a student gave me a bowl of Cheerios and said, hey, it has all 3 things. I go, but it's a bowl of Cheerios. Give me a sandwich or something. Give me avocado toast. I don't care. It's got to have all 3 things. Okay, protein, carbs, it's all the things that you eat. Protein, carbs. Oh, spaghetti and meatballs is a very popular one. Fettuccine Alfredo is a very popular one. Okay, it's got to have a protein, it's got to have a fat, and it's got to have a carbohydrate in it. Each person on that team is responsible for the digestive journey of 1 of them. So if you have 3 people on your team, 1 person has to take on carbohydrate, 1 person has to take on protein, the other person has to take on fats. If you have 4, that means that 1 person is doubling up with somebody else. They're gonna have their own respective posts, but you're doing the digestive journey. Now here is the good thing about this. Because it's not a physio class, we're gonna cut it all the way down. So really where most of your work is gonna be done, where we do most of our digestion happens to be just in the stomach and the intestine. That's where the enzymes go. So speaking of enzymes, that's where we're gonna talk about our digestive system, okay? So it'll make more sense and then you'll start to come up with your meals. All right, can we go over this?
Yes.
Okay, and then, because we have to make sure that we have enough time for that too. Okay, let's do endocrine. By the way, anything that is in black is a gland. Anything that is in black is a gland. Anything is in green are certain features of that gland. So in other words, anything green belongs to the gland. They're either the cell types or they're a certain structure of that gland that I want you to know. What do you think blue is? Anything that is blue. Blue is what it secretes. Blue is the hormone. So let's do pituitary first because that's kind of like the big one. Some of it is review. I'm going to draw something in the inside here, and I want you to tell me why I'm drawing it the way I'm drawing it. Those of you who went to the Tuesday, please don't answer. Those of you who went to the Tuesday, please do not answer. I want somebody from Thursday who hasn't seen this before. Why am I drawing that the way I'm drawing it? Anterior and posterior. Why did I draw one with little tiny circles and then I drew one with circles and strings? What is neurons? Which one is the neurons? The posterior one, right? Neural hypophysis. These are neurons. So histologically, how this will appear, this will look very meaty and glandular and chunky. This will look very wispy. By the way, have your references, as many references as you can for all of the histology with the stars. And where all those references are, they're in the guided lab lecture. I'm gonna double check and see if the guided lab lecture, if I posted these last two, I don't remember if I did. Just in case I didn't, I'm going to post them for you guys, okay? So, this is the anterior pituitary, or adrenal hypophysis, this is neural hypophysis. When you do your histology for this one, if I put a big star, I'm not gonna ask you about each one individually, I'm not gonna zoom in on just the one and give you no context. I'm gonna make sure that in that field of view, you can see both of them so that you have context and you know which one I'm asking for, okay? That's our pituitary. Start off with the anterior one, the adeno, lie, flat, pig. I'm gonna go over what each of them stand for. What each of them stand for. With that, I am going to, let me go and plug this in so you have the full names of them. Okay. See the ones that are red up there? That's what they stand for. I will accept abbreviations, however, you should know what they stand for. Okay, my flat pig, MSH, melanocyte stimulating hormone. I'm going to say the function, you're just gonna write it down because I don't have room to put the function. Melanocyte stimulating hormone, the function is in the name itself. What is the function? Stimulates melanocytes, that's it. Good. Flat, FLAT, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone. Every time I draw a black arrow, the black arrow means that that hormone targets those glands. Black arrow, that means this is the target of FSH and LH. What are the two gonads that we're going to look at histologically? The ovary and the testis. I don't have a lot of room to put on there, but I have the guided lab lecture and I'm going to show you. This is the ovary, this is the testis. If you wanted to redo this slide and make things green and blue so it matches everything else, I'm going to tell you what's green. Oops. The Graafian follicle and the granulosa and the theca cells. If I drew them on there, they should be green. I'll show you what a Graafian follicle is. The follicle itself is not a cell. It is the structure that houses the egg cell. You're gonna pick the biggest follicle. So all of these are all follicles. Pick the biggest one on the slide. This one looks like a good contender. This is the Graafian follicle. This is the oocyte. We're not going to worry about that now. That's for reproductive. But I'm going to point out to you, I don't know if you can see my arrow, where the other cells would be. The granulosa cells are the small cells that are surrounding that. They're also found in the inner layer. The theca cells are surrounding those granulosa cells. And all of those cells are going to secrete estrogen. If I wrote this up there, this would be in blue. Function of estrogen, multiple functions. Female secondary sex characteristics is fine. Female development is fine. Egg cell development is fine. All of those are good. Find one function for estrogen. After this has released its egg, there's the egg, then there's a piece of this that gets left behind and it turns into something else. This is the something else. That something else is called the corpus luteum. If you don't find this on the slide, don't worry about it. We had a real hard time finding this on Tuesday. And I think we did find maybe one on Tuesday. They will happily share that with you. Did you find it? I think you did,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We gave it to you, we had,
Yeah, it took half the lab looking for that darn corpus luteum. I don't want you to spend half the lab looking for it. And it still looked wonky, exactly. If anything, I would ask as a picture, but it's supposed to look like this, kind of puffy. It's the leftover of this, that's what that is. This corpus luteum secretes this hormone called progesterone that is gonna maintain the uterine lining. In the male, this is the testis. This is what you're looking for. This is all the ones that would end up being in green. And this is the hormone that would be in blue. Seminiferous tubule is the cross-section of each of these. Do you see all these little tails in there? These represent sperm that are being made and they're about ready to get released. So this is a seminiferous tubule. Sustentacular cells, they don't secrete hormone. So for today, let's not revisit them until we get to reproductive, shall we? We want to focus on the little clusters of cells in between. The little clusters are called interstitial cells, and they secrete testosterone. In between, you see that cluster? That one, not that one. That one's not a good one. I like this one. This is a good one. This one. That's a tiny one. And there's one up there that I definitely see. Those are the interstitial cells. They are kind of the in-between cells. You can think of them that way. And they secrete testosterone. Don't worry about where the sustentacular cells are. They are actually in here, but they don't secrete a hormone. So for today's discussion, we don't need to know it for now. That's going to be for reproductive, okay? So that is what was supposed to go on this side. This slide was supposed to go here. Okay, so you have this reference for that one. Yes. Yeah.
The oval is in the ovaries.
Uh-huh.
That's the Graafian follicle.
The biggest one. All of them are follicles, so these are all follicles, but the Graafian one is the biggest one.
Okay. And then what was the granules?
Granulosa cells are in here. They're inside the follicle.
Okay.
And so are the theca cells. The theca cells are kind of, you see this outer layer that looks a little bit more stringy? Those are the theca cells.
Okay.
So the theca cells surround the granulosa cells, and the granulosa cells surround the egg. So from outer to in, theca, granulosa, and then the egg cell is right there. And this whole thing is called the Graafian follicle. The whole
Including
thing.
the theca cells.
Including the theca cells and all of that. Correct. And this whole area, if I ask for the name of the organ, tell me the ovary. Okay? All right, cool. Black arrow to the gonads. Next black arrow, ACTH is going to target the adrenal cortex. This one has 3 layers, histology layers I want you to know. We're going to move on to the adrenal gland. You're likely not going to get an image that looks like this when you look histologically. You are going to get something that looks closer to this. These are all 3 zones of the adrenal gland. Our digestive system is there. Endocrine has kind of been pushed to the side. And in this corner, so like a model like this is fair game. The reason why it encapsulates 2 systems in it. Urinary system is here, but endocrine could be up here. So this is the adrenal gland. And just like how I drew it in class, you have an outer cortex and you have an inner medulla. The medulla, don't forget the medulla, that one secretes epinephrine. I'm not going to go over that. We're focusing on the cortex, which is the outer part, the cortex. These three zones I want you to know, and I want you to know the hormones that come from them, and the hormones just generally what they do. If you can encapsulate it in just 2 words, that will be even better, okay? These are all going to sound like Harry Potter spells, I'm gonna tell you right now. And you're gonna think GFR. Zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, zona reticularis. If I had a magic wand, nothing happened. Okay. Zona glomerulosa looks very round. Zona fasciculata looks very stringy. Zona reticularis looks just like that, only that it's shorter and it's darker. Glomerulosa, fasciculata, reticularis. Those are the 3. These are what they secrete. Aldosterone. Glomerulosa will secrete aldosterone. This is for sodium retention. Zona fasciculata and zona reticularis will secrete the same thing. Cortisol, that's your stress hormone. And then the sex steroids, which are the same ones that we get from here. What's contributing to somebody's libido is actually the adrenal cortex more than it is the actual gonads itself, by the way, okay? So all of them are steroid hormone derived and cholesterol derived, which is why they're all related to each other. So adrenal cortex, these are the regions I want you to know about adrenal cortex and the hormones that they secrete. The last black arrow is going to be TSH stimulates the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland, we're going to find the thyroid follicles first. I know the term follicle keeps showing up. I'm going to show you what a thyroid follicle is. Each of these pools is a thyroid follicle. The most important cell when it comes to metabolism is what you want to look for is the follicular cell. The follicular cell is the one that will secrete thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone increases your metabolism. I'm going to show you what the follicular cell looks like. You're going to look for a whole follicle, and you're going to find these darker cells that tend to be in a straight line. And they're dark, and they're very distinct. Their nuclei are very, very distinct. That is the thyroid gland. That is part 1 of the thyroid gland. Okay, everybody with me so far? I just want to make sure I didn't lose anybody. You're like, no, that was like 30 minutes ago. You lost me. Okay, just want to make sure that you have all of this. Okay, following along? All right, thyroid gland. Thyroid follicles, follicular cells. There is a part 2 to the thyroid gland. Thyroid gland part 2. Because there are 2 hormones from the thyroid gland. Only one of them is for metabolism. The other one is for lowering blood calcium. That takes us to thyroid gland part 2. These cells are known by 3 names. Pick any one. You can call them parafollicular. You can call them clear cells. You can call them C cells. Which one do you think you want? C cells is just fine with me. Clear cells will tell you what they might look like. They look a little bigger than the follicular cells. And they tend to look a little more transparent or ghost-like. And they don't like to really be in a nice row. They show up here and there, so these are some good ones. These are some good ones. Let me see. There's one hanging out over here. But for the most part, they're kind of all over the place. They are going to secrete calcitonin. So our C cells secrete calcitonin, tones calcium down, lowers our blood calcium. Parathyroid gland is something else. For reference, do you see these little pools in here? Those are the follicular follicles that we just talked about. This is the thyroid gland. This little piece is called the parathyroid gland. The parathyroid gland is in the back of the thyroid gland, and it's a completely separate endocrine gland. This is the histology of the parathyroid gland. All of these, just call them parathyroid cells. Good, it's good. That's fine. There's different kinds of cells, but just call them parathyroid cells. That's all right. And they are going to release parathyroid hormone. Calcitonin lowers blood calcium. Parathyroid hormone increases blood calcium. Lowers blood calcium, raises blood calcium. Lowers blood calcium, tones calcium down, raises blood calcium. Parathyroid hormone. Secreted by the thyroid gland, secreted by the parathyroid gland. That's why they are together. We're almost done with this part. How many of you know what the pineal gland secretes? What does it do? Sleepy time. Regulates sleep cycles, okay?
Everybody
I'm fine,
just
I will
says-
take sleepy time. I'll take sleepy time. It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay, it's the final. I will take sleepy time. Okay? Yeah, that's one less thing for us to remember. Because we already knew it, right? Okay. Oh, the pancreas. The pancreas, now you'll never forget it because now you're thinking about like sipping urine.
Thanks
Okay.
for reminding me of that now.
Yeah, thanks. Pancreas, alpha, beta, and delta.
You just clicked.
Okay, this is what the pancreas will look like as a whole. You're looking for little islands in an ocean of exocrine. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for little islets in an ocean of exocrine. So this is endocrine. There's another one there. There's another tiny one over there. This is how it's typically going to look at the slides over here. It's a little bit darker. There's different stains, but you're looking for the same thing. You don't need to identify the 3 separate cells in here, which is which. You should just know their existence and what they do. Your alpha cells secrete glucagon. Your beta cells secrete insulin. What does insulin do to blood glucose? Bring it up or bring it down?
Insulin down.
Insulin down. What does glucagon do then? It's the opposite one. It brings it up. So glucagon raises blood glucose. Like when you're fasting, insulin lowers blood glucose. When you've just eaten. These are opposite. Both of them are existing here. There is a third cell called the delta cell. That one secretes somatostatin. That one has a couple of effects that I will take. Slows down digestion is one. Inhibits growth hormone is the other. Okay, so somatostatin, probably these two are more important than somatostatin at this point. Okay, that's our pancreas. You think somatostatin is what? Somatostatin slows down digestion and inhibits growth hormone. So 2 things. Okay, so we've got parathyroid, pineal, pancreas, the thymus. I had a list of 3 for the Tuesday group because I only mentioned this one. Tuesday representatives, can you share? I only want you guys to know thymosin, okay? You don't need to know the other 2 that were on there.
Aww.
Thymosin. You can learn that on your own, Colton. It's all. That's okay. It's okay. If you know it already, you know it already. Right? But thymosin, T cell development. That's that. Those are the targets of this, all of the black arrows. So we covered the 3 boxes, we covered whatever's on the side. We can't forget the following. Prolactin and growth hormone. Prolactin, so my flat pig. Prolactin is prolactation. Produce lactation. Milk production. Production of milk. Production of milk. Prolactin. Production of milk. Milk release is something entirely different. That's oxytocin. Why do I say oxytocin? Okay. Milk production, milk release. Milk production, milk release. Milk production. GH is growth hormone. Growth hormone targets the muscle and the bone. So muscle and bone development, that's 1. Also, it mobilizes glucose. Or like mobilizes fuel. You can say that. To mobilize fuel means to put something in the blood so that we can use it as fuel. So it mobilizes fats and glucose. Bone and muscle development is another one too. That's okay. Several things for growth hormone, whatever you want to pick the one that you remember the most. Neurohypophysis. Last one up here is the neurohypophysis, you can't forget it. ADH is also known as vasopressin. ADH stands for the following. Anti-diuretic hormone. To diurese is to pee. If it's anti-diuretic, what are you anti?
Trying to hold it.
You're trying to hold it. What does that mean? What does that mean? It's for water retention. Water retention. We are going to see this guy again when we go to the kidney.
So we
Because
just-
that's the
so
target.
We only need to know one. Either
For the
vasopressin
practical.
or
Yes, vasopressin. So you need to know one, but knowing both helps. Like, cause on the lecture exam, if I have any one of these as a word bank or a multiple choice option, you need to know both names, or else you won't be able to recognize it. So recognize both names, but on the practical, give me only one.
and then ACTH is adrenocorticotropic, right?
Adrenocorticotrophic hormone. ACTH. ADH, anti-diuretic hormone, that's for water retention. And then the other one, the last one is oxytocin. What did I say was the function for oxytocin? Milk release. Milk release or uterine contraction is another one, because that's the example I gave you guys. Uterine contraction. And I think that covers it for our endocrine. I think you guys need a mental break. Not a mental breakdown, a mental break. Okay, let's take until around 10:30 so that we can come to digest it, so I give you everything. I want to make sure I give you everything today, and then you can go at your own pace and tackle all of it. So let's take a break first, because I think the more we go into this, the less it's going to be able to come in and make sense.